This is Friday Night Fever Afterburn, sponsored by Arena Comics and Gaming.
Welcome to Friday Night Fever Afterburn, week 2 of the 2025 high school football season. A lot of games going on around the Panhandle tonight. So far, so good on the audio. All right.
Yeah, let us know if you guys if we're all
we
good.
had a little technical issues last week, but we got things smoothed out this week, so we're ready for a big night of high school football. There was a lot of matchups coming into this week where we're like, okay, are these good matchups? Are these not good matchups? We really didn't know where to go with the game of the week. We ended up going to Port St. Joe. We'll get into all those scores in a second, but just kind of a weird week with everything there. But it ended up having a lot of big, thrilling games tonight. So
yeah, I was actually kind of excited about how much action just around the Panhandle was going down, whether or not we were in Bay County, Walton County, it didn't even matter. Everywhere had a good game. So, yeah. Right.
So let's go ahead and get right into those scores. We'll go through those scores and let you know what's going on tonight. We already see some thumbs up, some good news from the comments that everything is running smooth sailing. That is good to know. We got Becca punching things, and she's doing a great job for us this year. Let's talk about those scores. Carly, if you could take this first sheet of games.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, the game I was at was Holmes County versus Port St. Joe, and I wasn't there for the end of the game, but I heard Holmes County had an opportunity for a field goal that would have put them over the top, but unfortunately that wasn't made. So the final score for that game was actually 9-8.
Other way around.
Yes.
Yes, we're good.
Which is okay. It's Port St. Joe won 9-8, and
our apologies on that.
Yeah, sorry about that. But yes, Port St. Joe won 9-8, and even though it was low scoring, I kind of thought there was a lot of action. I was so sad because Jacob Hensley, the quarterback for Port St. Joe, ended up getting out of the game. I want to say in the second quarter. I think it was an ankle injury. If you guys know, please let us know, because it was really sad to see. And I knew that was going to be a difficult situation these teams, or Port St. Joe was in. But luckily, they were able to rely on those running backs in that Wildcat formation. So I thought that looked really good. Elijah Harris had a good touchdown from running in that formation. And so I think it ended up being okay. They took the win, but prayers for Jacob because I don't know what happened. And obviously, he's a great quarterback and great kid, so I hope he's okay.
Yeah, but again, Port St. Joe won that one 9-8. And then just to go through the rest of the scores, let's just crank through the rest of these.
Yes, of course. I'm sorry about that. So Freeport 31-14 over Jay, and that was at home in Freeport. And then we have Bay and Mosley. That was at Tommy Oliver.
You're reading that one right.
Yes, Bay Tornadoes defeated the Mosley Dolphins 34-21. And then we have Fort Walton and South Walton. South Walton took that one 29-16. And Sam, you can do the next one.
Yeah, let's go ahead to the next sheet. We've got Liberty County bouncing back in big fashion, 45-0 over those Vernon Yellow Jackets they were facing. Remember when I said last week, hey, don't take this Bluntstown game as what this season will look like for Liberty County? Yeah, there you go. 45-0. The Bulldogs get a big win tonight. Bozeman, 2-0 in the Kevin Pettis coaching era. That team can play defense and the special teams. Let me tell you what, 21-19 over the Leon Lions out of Tallahassee. The Arnold Marlins also bouncing back. They took a tough loss to the Bay Tornadoes, who we now see are for real, those Bay Tornadoes, but a 27-6 victory over Providence Christian coming down from Alabama. And then Cottondale heading over to Tallahassee, they get a 48-16 victory over FAMU DRS. Let's go to the next sheet. You can take this.
Yeah, so Chipley, that was a great win. It was 53-0, 53-0 over Linden. And then Branford and Wewa Hitchka, unfortunately, 7-33 on that one. And then Franklin County over Bell. I told you Franklin County is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm excited about that score. And then we have Sneed's 14 to Seminole County up in Georgia, 41.
All right, so is that all the scores we got for tonight? Awesome. Let's go ahead and head back to that main sheet. I see a lot of comments down in here tonight. One thing that we want to always encourage is lots of comments. Let us know
Yes,
what game
please.
that you were at tonight. Let us know what game you're watching, what teams you were following, who had the big performances. We haven't got all the stats from everybody tonight, so let us know if somebody had a massive game. I see some support for the Freeport Bulldogs. They obviously had a huge win over North Bay Haven last week, and then this week over the J Royals, who I believe coming into the year, a lot of people had ranked as a top 5 team in the rural classification. So that's a huge victory, 31-14 for those Bulldogs. But I also see support for Matthew Lawley.
Yes, I wanted to say that one.
You were saying his name over and
over
again
and
during
over.
this
So
highlight.
please stick around. I guess this is Matthew's grandmother. Yes, stick around because he had a wonderful game tonight, and I'm excited to talk about it. So,
Right.
yeah, it said his name a lot.
Mr. John Brock, super fan of Liberty County. You said last week it's only one game, and you were right. How about those Bulldogs getting a big win tonight? Yeah, we see. Yes, you were reading that score correctly. That is the Bay Tornadoes winning 34-21 over the Mosley Dolphins. We'll get into those highlights in just a minute. So now Jeremy Brown, he is 2-2 versus his former school, Mosley, as a Bay Tornado. He won his first year there, lost the last 2, and now Bay has won that game for the second time in 4 years. So they are on track to win the county title here in Bay County after walloping Arnold last week.
Can we just take a second and imagine what that Bay locker room was like after the game?
Yeah, I want to imagine for our friend over at the News Herald, Banji, what tonight was like for him, because he predicted a 55-17 Mosley victory.
Oh my goodness.
I got to see if Coach Jeremy Brown was talking after the game tonight, but we'll get into that in just a second. Keep commenting. Tell us which games you're most excited about. We're going to go ahead and get into our matchup up in Bonifay. If we can pull the highlights from that one.
Yes, we do know Holmes County did not win. I see that comment right there. We do know that Port St. Joe took the victory 9-8. But I kind of just want to, we'll talk a little bit about that game because even though it wasn't a high scoring game, it was an intense game. And it obviously started with Port St. Joe and the field goal because, well, they went for something and they got the field goal. And then later on in the game, I don't know what play this is exactly. Oh, okay. So this is when the game kind of turned around because Bonifay or Holmes County ended up with the touchdown and then the 2-point conversion, which was actually put the score up to 8-3. And it was crazy because any play, any touchdown would have turned the game the other way the entire game. Everybody was on the line for that victory. And even in the second half, when it was still 9-8, every single play mattered. And yeah, it's just the little things that matter in this moment, like the little interceptions. For both teams, I do know that they're both great quarterbacks, but they both did throw interceptions, which these little mistakes will end up in 1-point losses like this. And that's just kind of how it works. And unfortunately, the Blue Devils got the short end of the stick for this one. And Port St. Joe balled out, especially when they lost their quarterback, having, it was Corbin and Elijah in the backfields, and they dominated. I mean, they kept the team going, and that's kind of what teams, given Port St. Joe, they don't have too many numbers, but they have the depth for in situations like that to keep going if someone like Jacob Hensley goes down. And like I said, I hope he's okay, and I hope he can get back at it. But also with Holmes County, they have a lot of a lot of those guys are very athletic, and I know multiple they play multiple sports, but I can tell in multiple situations that these guys show their athleticism. And gosh, right there, the interception, I don't know if he meant to catch that ball, but it was a really great moment for him, and it's just kind of, so.
Yeah, you mentioned the dual sport athletes,
Yeah.
and obviously, they just won a state championship in baseball this past
Right.
year. So some of these guys playing all over at Holmes County. But the Tiger Sharks, they did get the win tonight. It was their first game of the season. They were going to open last week, I believe, against Osceola, somewhere over in Monticello, and they got that game dropped. So this was their first game of the season. The Sharks 1-0. Holmes County 0-2, so a tough way to start the year, especially because I believe they have to go to Walton next week. So that's a tough thing, especially when you got your former coach over there at Walton this year. So that's going to be a tough one for those Holmes County Blue Devils, but the Sharks 1-0 on the year.
Yeah, and I do think, because I was talking to their new coach, that he's got a good. They're going to be good. It's just that it's hard because they're also switching from that wing T format to going into the spread, and you have to adjust to that. Like, it's going to take time. That's going to take reps, and I just think they're ironing out the kinks going from wing T to spread.
Right. So once again, a big win for those Tiger Sharks. I'm seeing a lot of comments down here. We got some support for the Arnold Marlins, Liberty County Bulldogs, the Bozeman Bucks, 2-0 on the season, the Bay Tornadoes. A lot of comments down here supporting the Chipley Tigers, Arnold Marlins, Bozeman Bucks, Cottondale. I see a comment talking about Jacob Hensley.
Yeah, I want to say
that ankle injury. We're hoping that those x-rays come back negative. So of course we're thinking about Jacob Hensley. He's, a big dual sport athlete as well, plays baseball, plays football. He's a big part of their offense. So we're hoping that he does well with the Ports.
We're definitely thinking about him, and I can just say the same thing. Seeing him was sad. So
well, let's go ahead and get into the one a lot of you here in Bay County have been thinking about and looking at that score with wide open eyes. That is the Bay Tornadoes and the Mosley Dolphins. Yes, the Bay Tornadoes picking up the victory tonight. And this was something where you could just tell right away these teams are very different than the year prior. And Mosley, they had a lot of new offensive linemen this year. They, of course, don't have Lakavian Jackson. That's an all-around athlete. They don't have Sammy Freitas. A lot of seniors that graduated last year. And they beat up on Rutherford last week. JP Holzenbach as a first-year starter looked fantastic. He was 5 touchdowns last week. Incredible. Looked great. But Bay jumped all over them tonight. That defense was giving them fits. TJ Davis, that man is an absolute animal for the Bay Tornadoes. He is basically, me and Banji were on the sidelines and we were talking about TJ Davis. He might be what Lakavian Jackson was to the Mosley Dolphins last year for the Bay Tornadoes. They were lining him up in Wildcat. He was taking the snaps and scoring. He scored a short yardage touchdown. He scored a long yardage touchdown. And then on defense, he was breaking through the line. He was all over the place. Of course, we got to mention Amari Johnson. That kid, he's just an animal. He gets open no matter what. He's one of the smallest players on the field and finds a way to get open. This year is TJ going for that big, long run that
I love how he does the high knees. I noticed that about him.
He was about to head back to the Bay High gym. But, man, those Bay Tornadoes, they were fired up. They were on the visiting sideline. So this was a big night for the Mosley Dolphins. They were inducting some new members into their Hall of Fame. The sidelines were packed. The home stands were filled for Mosley. And halfway through the game, it was so much louder on the visiting sideline for the Bay Tornadoes. They were fired up. There's a couple calls that didn't go their way, and their fans were getting into it. You could just tell, man, we've been disrespected the last couple of years by Mosley. They've run they've run the score up on us. The last 2 years ended up, I believe, in running clock fashion. And this year, Bay was just not having it. They went into the halftime up by a score. And then Mosley took the lead right away in the third quarter. It was 21-20. And so you think, oh, man, here it goes again. Mosley's about to have another one of those second half comebacks. They're going to put up, 20, 30 points on us and put this game away in the fourth quarter. But no, Bay answers right back. They retake the lead, and then they put another touchdown on top of that. They win 34-21. Coach Jeremy Brown and those guys, they are now 2-2 against the Mosley Dolphins in the Jeremy Brown coaching era. This is one that Coach Brown was very excited about. These are his guys that have been there since freshman year, this senior group. All of those guys, the Amari Johnsons, the TJ Davis, of course, Zay Morgan. These guys, JT Bowden, these guys have been here. They were the young cats a few years ago, and now they're like, man, this is our time. Mm-hmm. Zay looks so poised and so comfortable, and that's
he
not
really
something
does.
that really JP had tonight. JP was there sitting in the pocket. He was dropping back, and he had red and white jerseys everywhere. He was so uncomfortable tonight. It looked night and day versus that week 1 game with the Rutherford Rams. Last year, he had all those senior linemen on the front line. We did a story talking about him last year. That was not the case tonight. There was penalty flags. It just was not the same Mosley Dolphins. And the defense, they are quite a bit smaller than last year. And Bay High's offensive line was bullying them. This, instead of in the recent years, Mosley's offensive line bullying, we're going to run low jack. He's going to, do everything because our O-line is. It was the exact opposite. Bay High was saying, let's put our playmaker, TJ Davis, let's put him in the Wildcat, and our offensive line is going to outman you. And that's exactly what the Bay Tornadoes did tonight. They out athleticism. They were bigger, they were stronger. There's obviously fantastic athletes like Carson Griffin. You got D1 guys all over for Mosley, but Bay High said, forget that. We're tired of being disrespected.
Right.
Coach Brown said, I believe we can win the county championship this year. And right now they're 2-0. They've beaten Arnold and they've beaten Mosley, and they're on track to win the county championship this year. So I believe these Bay High Tornadoes are for real. We didn't know what it would look like. They had a rough outing in the preseason against a very good Niceville, and now we see, they're for real.
I wonder if that preseason game kind of lit a fire before it even started against Niceville, even though they're not going to play them again. But I'm sure that they were like, you know what, we know. I've heard this quote from multiple coaches this season, and there's too much talent on these specific teams to have a losing record. And I genuinely feel like these Bay High Tornadoes understand the talent on their team. And like you said, they're not going to put up with any of the disrespect because they know what they have and they know they're willing to work for it. Yeah, tonight was personal for them. So I guarantee you they're going to sleep well tonight. So.
Yeah, well, I got to say this was a fun one to be at tonight. We'll get to this a little more later on. But like I mentioned last week, this will be my last show here on Friday Night Fever Afterburn. But this was a fun one to finish off on because you always love that rivalry. In the last couple of years, it's been all Mosley. So to have Bay High go and win this one in statement fashion, that's a fun way to finish off here.
You feel satisfied with that game?
I feel that, you saw that last year's team at Mosley had a shot at going on and making a big run. They didn't make that happen. There's a lot of new guys with the team this year, and Bay took advantage. They said, okay, we're the senior heavy bunch. We think that, we can play with Mosley this year. Not only did they play with them, they beat them by 2 scores. So those Bay Tornadoes, they look like, Coach Brown said, these are our goals this year. We want to win the county championship. We want to win a district championship. We want to have a home playoff game. So 2-0, obviously only against Bay County opponents that got district play to get into. But how about that start for the Bay Tornadoes?
I really do think that this is a moment where the O-line not being there from last year is very much recognized, and you mentioned it too, but the importance of an O-line is just night and day. And yeah, they were incredible last year, and they're a little bit younger, smaller this year, but it makes those differences. So, yeah
absolutely. We're going to go ahead and move to that Freeport game where those Bulldogs, man, they're for real. The Freeport Bulldogs, they are doing things. I mean, last week we saw them against North Bay Haven, who's, a bunch that's figuring things out. They've had, 5-6 head coaches in the last 3 years. Coach Andy Siegel having to resign right before the year due to health issues. So we really didn't know after last week when they beat down on North Bay Haven. Julius Miles having a career game last week. But then tonight, Jay, this is a team who last year had all kinds of players. They went on, and their baseball team won a state championship, and they had so many athletes on the field. They're a team that people thought, man, they could be a Final Four contender. They brought a handful of guys back this year, and a lot of the publications around the state have Jay as one of the top 10 teams in the state of Florida for the rural classification. We know Freeport's no longer in the rural classification, but they're probably about the smallest team in Class 2A right now. They're only going to get bigger because Freeport's a growing community. But tonight, man, those Freeport Bulldogs, they won by multiple scores against Jay. There was no doubt in this. And we knew,
Carter Nunes.
He's got his weapons. He's got Leonard. He's got Louthan. He's got, of course, Julius Miles. But the defense, man, they were incredible. I saw so many plays, the tackles for loss. These guys were all over the field. And Freeport, who's in a tough district, they do have a tough district because they've got Walton, South Walton, and Pensacola Catholic. Right now, I'm looking at it, I'm like, man, if they're putting the beatings on these teams, I surely think they can probably compete with the South Waltons. Walton looked really good last week. They had a bye week this week. But, man, those Freeport Bulldogs, they were really impressive to me. What do you feel like Do you feel like this Freeport team is, I know the known as Julius Miles. Do you feel like, man, they can really compete in that district this year?
I mean, even bringing up like Carter Nunes, he's had such a big season already. Obviously, with these games, he's definitely showed his power on the offense. And then like Dylan Luthane, there are different pieces all over that offense and even on defense as well. So I think now that they've kind of fell into this rhythm, I do believe that this is going to be a great season for them. I'm actually trying to find when they play South Walton. I don't know.
I think that's not till October.
Oh, okay. Because I'm excited for that matchup because I know that Coach Arntz and Coach Tiza for South Walton are kind of like, that little friendship. They
used to be neighbors.
Yes.
Not out a couple weeks ago.
And I know it's personal, so I'm excited for that one. And I actually think that would be a good game, but I also know. The Walton County high schools are doing really well, and I think Freeport is just right up there with them. They're loaded. I agree.
Right. I talked to Carter about taking that sophomore to junior year jump, and he's like, I have to. For those who have been around for the last few years, Carter's older brother Ashton was the quarterback for the Bulldogs, and he took a big jump from his sophomore to junior season. And Carter said, hey, I've been in the weight room, I've been working, I've been getting in the extra reps with my guys, Caleb Leonard. Julius, obviously he said, Julius, he's down there somewhere, as you see on the you just throw the ball up and, you got a 6'6" Division I receiver that's going to Louisville down there. And, obviously a phenomenal basketball player, averaged like 25 points a game. When you got that, you can always throw the ball downfield. But a big piece for the Bulldogs this year was getting Dylan Louthan back. I've been saying his name wrong for the last couple of seasons with Luthane, but they were told me it's Louthan. So apologize for saying your name wrong over the past couple of years, Dylan. But that was a big get back. He's originally from Freeport. He transferred to Walton last year when they had that really good team, and then said, okay, I want to come back home this year. So it was a big return. He didn't transfer from Walton to Freeport. He originally was at Freeport. They want to make that clear. He is a Freeport guy, and he had a big game tonight. But man, the Bulldogs 2-0 feels good.
Yeah, no, we haven't seen that in a few seasons, so I think that's pretty exciting for them.
Oh yeah, we see Blake McCormick is happy man tonight. Yeah, those Freeport faithful, even on down years, they love those Bulldogs. But we do now get to talk about another Walton County team. Do we have that one up next? Yeah, with South Walton. Yeah. Do we have that South Walton game next? Yes. Okay. Well, for our South Walton game, we're going to introduce you to someone new, someone who's going to be stepping in and helping out with our sports department, someone who's been helping us a lot the past couple of weeks and getting in the high school football reps, and someone who will be here next week when I am not here. We're going to introduce you guys now to Delaney Vega. Delaney, welcome to Friday Night Fever Afterburn.
Thank you so much.
You were over in Santa Rosa Beach tonight. Last week you were in Bristol.
Yes.
2 weeks into the high school football season. How you feeling?
Oh, yeah. I mean, y'all have been very generous with the games that you've been sending me at. Carly took me over to Bay Arnold at first, and that was a very, high energy game, a great game to start with. And then I got to go over and see Bluntstown really take it home over at Liberty County, which Liberty County is a great team, but hard game to start with Bluntstown. But then finally on my own, I was able to go to South Walton.
What'd you think of that stadium, first of all?
Oh, gorgeous stadium. I mean, I would have loved to have a stadium like that in high school, but can't say that I did. And I think that stadium definitely brought some new life into them, like you said, over in Fever. And I know 2024, they didn't have the greatest season. And then they lost a lot of seniors. And so you think that team chemistry would be pretty bad, but I didn't really see that this week. I saw a lot of team chemistry. I saw that QB finding his wide receivers pretty well. And it was a great game, and they took that one home.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and can we pull up those South Walton highlights and let Delaney talk about that in a second. Yeah, J.D. Brown with a big game tonight.
Yeah,
go ahead and just tell us what you're only there for, I think
just into the second
quarter. Right. So what did you see through the first quarter just from those Seahawks?
Yeah, it was, I have to admit, a little slow at first. I definitely think J.D. Brown was kind of finding his feet, trying to find those wide receivers. But once he did, he was unstoppable. I think a good name to really look out for was Carter Hawk. He had some great hands. He was staying wide on the outside, and their chemistry was just insane. That's him again for a second time, just kind of waddling off and just making that Oh, and then the soccer player with a great kick. That kid has got a leg on him.
Yes.
He's very consistent. And once again, just absolutely dotting his receivers. He looked very poised behind his O-line. And even when he was forced out of the pocket, I think he was also running really well, which is something that I feel like maybe you don't see too often in high school football. Doing well under pressure, like you see right there, he's out of the pocket and he still makes kind of a sideways throw to his wide receiver. And then there that is the
Mahomes-esque.
Mahomes-esque, and he's only a junior.
Yes. And there it is. Those were the first touchdown of the match with some flashing light shows, which was great to watch. And yeah, they took that one home. I didn't get to see much come from Fort Walton Beach, but it looked like South Walton kind of really took control of that game and just handled it from there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And man, I really like these new Seahawk uniforms this year.
The
They got new
helmets
stadium,
are
new uniforms. They really are
amazing.
reminding me of the Oregon Ducks. I don't know. If it's just because
I was thinking
they're
that
green
too.
and they're flashy, but they reminded me of those Oregon uniforms. And yeah, JD Brown, Coach Tease has been so excited about him. I know he's been getting some Division I attention.
Yep.
I believe he's already got a few offers so far. So
For good reason.
Right.
Yeah, no, he
he's
does.
poised. He knows what he's doing. He clearly has been putting in a lot of work this off season. And man, South Walton Seahawks now 2-0 after last season winning 2 games. They were playing a lot at Emerald Coast Middle School. They were all over the place. They never really had a home field, so it was a tough season for them. Their worst in like 10 years, and now they've already matched the win total. So a good start for the Seahawks